Oh yeah. So what was I saying? The church, one unique thing about it is how young the population skews, and that's really I've been in churches in America where I or Dusty and I were the only people in the room below age 60, or if not that, then close to that. And that's really discouraging to see, because we love old folks, but a church that has no young people has no future. Here, at least at Mustard Seed, it's the opposite of that. The pastor is probably younger than I am, is my guess. I'm not sure, but everyone there, most people are quite young. We are probably above average in our age for this group, and that's really cool. It's great to see lots of young people engaged.
They seem to be having a different demographic issue, though.
Yes, their biggest problem is...
Note that this is just our observation after a couple months, but...
Yeah, so take it for what it's worth, but if you talk to the people running it, discreetly, they'll even admit that their biggest challenge is recruiting native Japanese people who have no connection to America or the Western world. A lot of them, the missionaries, they came here because they wanted to do what Paul in the Bible did, which is Paul was going to places where people were not predisposed to be receptive. And that's what these missionaries want to do. But what they end up accomplishing instead is creating a religious community for expats and people who love expats, and natives who love expats. It's either, you did college in a Western country and you became Christian, or at least you developed, some curiosity about Christianity, and then you go home to Japan and you want to learn more, and then you come here. That's a common kind of story. Or it could be that, a lot of your friends are expats, and then they tell you about the church and they tell you about Jesus, and some percent of those people are going to say, well, how can I learn more? And then they come in, and then you have the expats themselves, which is at least half, maybe more. And that's what's happening. And the church is growing, and they're very pleased about that, but it's growing along the lines that I just described, and they're not so happy about that.
They've got a lot of different things going, they'll have English conversation groups where you can, practice at either an English table or a Japanese table. Do you want to practice your Japanese? Do you want to practice, your English skills? Usually will be based around religious questions. Right after that, they'll usually have a cafe with kind of a deeper question for the whole table, small groups to consider together.
Yeah, so in Japan, there are a lot of natives who want to practice their English.
Because it is the lingua franca of the modern world.
That's exactly it. And a lot of them, if you go through public school in Japan, if you're a native person, you will probably have taken at least 5 years of English. And your college entrance exam probably had a section on English that was not easy at all. But what that means in practice is that a lot of people can pass exams in English, but to have even a basic conversation, that's something else entirely. And those who want to pursue it and not lose what they learned in school. If you want to go to a place where you can talk to native speakers in English, ordinarily that's something you'd have to pay for in Japan, but the church offers that for free as kind of a meetup to pull people in. That works reasonably. They do have some people who come, and then they try to segue the conversations towards Christianity eventually.
But sometimes the tables don't even get to those questions, and they talk about what they feel like talking about. So from the first week, there was a couple, probably about 10 years younger than us, who got married about a year and a half ago and immediately came to Japan to be part of this. And they kind of took us under their wing, socially speaking. A
little bit. They're both we like them a lot.
Yeah, they feel a little quirky, a little nerdy like us. Mm-hmm. And the wife invited me out recently to coffee and shopping, which was really, really nice because I had 3 weeks while we were moving in here of chaos and zero socialization. So I was like, yes, please.
But they came a couple years ago with the goal of being missionaries and helping grow the church. Mm-hmm. They both work here, so that's one way to learn the language real quick, is to have a Japanese boss yelling at you and you have no idea what he's saying.
Yeah, they switched out to an American-owned company. When they saw, especially the high turnover of Japanese people even, they said, okay, so this isn't even your standard Japanese work environment. This is bad by Japanese standards.
And there's a lot of that. Like, one of the most common stories we get from both expats and natives is, like, if you work for, like, a Japanese company, be careful. There are a lot that will demand enormous amounts of unpaid overtime, will, like, drag you in on the weekend, and if you make the slightest complaint, then your Japanese boss will, like, yell at you at the top of his lungs in front of everyone, and that's considered perfectly normal. Well, that may be going too far, because that kind of thing prompts even Japanese people to leave.
Well, that's what was happening, and actually she said, my friend said, the hardest thing probably for her husband was watching her get yelled at and not being able to do anything. So they eventually just left.
Yeah, no doubt he wanted to do something, but also didn't want to jeopardize their visa, which is a conundrum. But anyway, they ended up switching to an American company, of which there are many here, and that's a good thing. Like, it's good that there's some competition for employees, which will hopefully
pressure the market.
Yeah, pressure the market, like raise the standards across the board. But there's a lot of, like, feet drag. Like, it's going to take a while for that to play out, because there's a lot of feet dragging, and the seniority system is such that like, at traditional firms, like, the older you are, the more power you have inherently. And, like, if you're an old fart who's done things the same way his whole life, you are not going to change for anything on heaven or earth.
And then you found somebody else.
Yeah, at church, I just like a week ago,
He made friends with Jack Bauer.
That's putting it too far, but like I met a young Chinese guy who's like I said, like, China is one of the biggest, like, senders of expats to Japan. I met a Chinese guy who's pretty young, like, very tough. Who, long story short, like, offered to, teach me some martial arts. He's, like, a impressively good fighter. What's really fascinating is why, like, he devotes a lot of his time and effort to training, and has for years, because he thinks that war with China is coming, and that we're going to have China on one side, and both Japan and the US, and maybe more of the Western world, on the other. And that this is coming within a few years, that it's inevitable, and he wants to participate, and he wants to see China become free. But in the meantime, he's training and preparing himself, and he offered to... We spent over an hour doing pretty intense, by my standards, boxing, with me hitting him, hitting various other things. My knuckles were bleeding a little bit by the time I was done, but that's the point. And I hope he will train me again. I really enjoyed it. So that was a lot. Like, while Dusty was, going shopping with her female friend, this is what I did. Which is just perfect.
Well, we're developing a small social circle, including we have a secular international group that we meet up with, and that those people kind of change out. Some rotate, in and out like us, and so we have a good small social circle.
So yeah, exactly, and I hope it continues to grow, and I hope I can learn more boxing. As usual, there's plenty more to share, but we're
running long.
We're running long as usual, so we love you all.
Johnny.
Johnny.